physical notes.
You
They're
guys
all
want
up
to see
here.
my video?
They're all up here. We'll show my videos. All right.
All right.
Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back.
Bar Talk. I think this is episode like 16 or 17.
16 or 17.
I think I'm losing count now.
I am too.
But and welcome back, Brant.
Brant,
I know
back
we,
with us.
I'm excited to be here.
Yep.
Yeah, so today I'm gonna probably let Brant kind of lead us off, but we're gonna get into the Tartarian theory of the Tartarian Empire, and how like this civilization was essentially wiped from history.
Basically,
If you want to kind of just take it from there.
So in my research over the last like week or so, I fell down quite the rabbit hole. I feel like, and there's layers to it. It's not so simple. It's not like other conspiracies where like, oh, there could be aliens, and you're like, yeah, cool, bro, whatever.
Right.
This is like this to me. It was very deep because from a historical context, like if you go back and you're reading, I mean, all of these texts that are like, you know, like flags of the world, the globes and like the maps from
Around the 1500s. Up until
1500s.
about 1800.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
around
about
that time frame.
about that time.
Th- this Tartarian Empire, Tartary, was on maps.
Right. And modern historians like from the 20th century on, they'll say, oh, it's just because there wasn't a lot known about that area. So map makers or cartographers would just mark it as Tartary as like a filler place. But you're telling me that in 1500, we didn't know what Mongolia was? We know that's not true.
We know that's not true.
We know that's not
Right,
true
exactly.
because the Mongol Empire was at like its peak in 1500.
Yeah.
So we know for a fact that we knew what Mongolia was.
because the area took up a large part of Asia.
Yeah.
Right.
So
There were
like from Eastern Europe to Asia, what would be
yes. I mean
parts of Russia, and
some
stuff
Russia.
like that.
basically from the maps that I was looking at is like all of modern day Russia, Mongolia, parts of like northwestern China. Basically what appears on these maps is three different Tartarias. That there's Grand Tartary, Chinese Tartary, and independent Tartary.
And something I read was that was not consistent though on all the maps. In some maps they didn't separate the three. In some it just said like Tartary. Some said Grand Tartary,
And it was
Or
just
the
it
Tartarian
encompassed
Empire.
all
Territory.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of an interesting fact that you have some map makers who were identifying it as one cohesive area, and others were
Splitting it up.
cutting it up into
Right.
into three.
So, but I also found so like there's in the rabbit hole that I went down, there is some like religious aspects to it.
Yep.
There's some ethnic aspects to it, and then there's also like some like mythical aspects to it, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I think that there's basically it like boils down to like three things. That there's the most possible theory about Tartary, then there's the one that's like, okay, this is a little far-fetched, but like it would be crazy if it were true. And then the third is like, this is insane. And so I think we should just like kind of dissect those layers.
Go over each one. Yeah.
And
Because by like you said, by the third one it gets a little insane.
yeah, because like the one video that I was watching, I was like, okay, this is cool. Like this is a cool, interesting theory that this part of history has just been deleted. And then at the very end, he was like, oh, and also this part. And I was like, oh, no. That's crazy.
Well, I want to just, before you dive into that, because I think the point I want to make right now, and then we will circle back to this at the end, toward the end of this. Anybody who wants to discount the fact that, and I'm not here to subscribe to whether it's true or not, but I will simply say this: there are facts out there where archaeology is a great example, where there is the academia part of archaeology who have dismissed archaeological evidence of things which we now know are in fact true.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the perfect example of that is Egypt and especially a lot of things revolving around the pyramids.
Yeah.
That is a fact. So I just want to say that so like if anybody's listening to this going, that's damn near impossible. That why would somebody do that? It's been done.
Yeah.
Right. So I think like so we'll go down the layers a little bit. And so the first layer is the one that's the most plausible. And that essentially is that Tartary or Grand Tartary or the Tartarian Empire, whatever we want to call it, was a real thing. And it was just an empire in that area, like we'll call it Eurasia. And they were conquered over time. And then for one reason or another, we decided that we were going to write them out of the history books. And now I think I know why, if they were real, I think I know why they were kind of dismissed and written out. And so,
But the part of that being like dismissed from history, I think goes a little bit deeper than layer one.
yes.
Oh, for sure.
Yes. And
For sure.
that kind of gets into, I think that part of it, there would be two reasons why it would be dismissed. And one is the religious aspect. And that was that the Tartarians were not Christian, right? So they were either Muslim or Zoroastrian, which is like an ancient.
Not like not Hindu or Buddhist or anything.
No.
Interesting.
Yeah, so Zoroastrian.
For that part of the world, that's interesting.
Right. So Zoroastrian religion is, besides Christianity, it's the oldest monotheistic religion, and it originates in Persia, Iran, right? And as we know, a lot of Central Asian people are still Zoroastrian today, just like many Persians are. But so the one reason that
You might want to explain that to people, what that means.
what
Zoroastrian.
Zoroastrian.
Yes.
Well, I don't know all of the inner workings of what that religion believes, but they use similar symbolism to what the Egyptians use, kind of like animals representing angelic figures.
Angelic figures or godlike figures.
You don't want to you don't want to say gods, because Zoroastrians only believe in one god, but there's that. It's like the golden eagle emblem that you see, and it's kind of like for them, their god was like the sun. Like it was the sun god, whereas other religions had the sun god and then multiple other gods.
Yeah,
Right.
like Apollo
They just
and all that. Yeah.
right. They just
Yep.
believed in this god, who they just represented as the sun, as this golden eagle figure. And there's some mythical stuff around it. Like some people say that the Zoroastrians engaged in magic and these rituals that could, bring people back from the dead or heal people using magic, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Right.
So there is because it's not a mainstream religion today, we kind of just see it as a little woo-woo. And so that could be a reason why the Catholic Church, who is also at its peak in the 1500s,
Yeah.
would have wanted to crush it.
Well, and we know that there were things that they were crushing related to even biblical stuff, books of the Bible, those types of things were being omitted.
Right.
Not necessarily, around that time frame.
Yeah.
Around that time frame.
Well, because around 1500, that's when you had the Protestant Reformation.
Yes.
So there was obviously a lot of turmoil within the Catholic Church at that
Right.
time.
Yeah.
And one of the other reasons that the Protestant Reformation happened was because all of the Christian kings in Europe were in some way, shape, or form submitting to the Pope. The
Right.
Pope had a lot of political power.
Right.
And so that's kind of, we don't want to get off on a tangent about Christian history.
Right.
But
No, because that.
But that was happening
But
all
that
at the
time
same
frame,
time.
yeah, yes. Like you and I'm not going to get off on the tangent, but I'm just going to point of reference. If you read The Prince by Machiavelli, there was so much turmoil going on in France and Italy, all around in Europe,
Right.
and a lot of it was most of it was centered around political theological conflict.
Right. So, one of the things that these like alternate history people use to reference Tartary, like as a symbol of this is why there is some truth to the myth of the Tartarian Empire is it's called a zenit. Is that what zenat? Let me find that real quick. The Zillant, sorry.
Oh, okay.
So the Tartar Zillant, which is essentially a dragon. It's a type of dragon. It's in some paintings it's depicted as a dragon, as a black dragon, and then others it's depicted as kind of a chimera where it's three heads. It's like one is a dragon head, one's a lion head,
Right.
and a goat head,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what I was referencing earlier, when you look at these maps of the world charts from around that time, like from the 1500s all the way up until like the 18th or I guess that's the 19th century.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their flag was a golden flag with the black Zillant on it. And now if you look at it's called the presidential standard. So like every country has multiple flags. The US is really the only boring country that we just have one flag that we use for everything. But most countries have their national flag, they have like a naval flag or a naval jack, and then they'll have a standard, which is used to represent your government or your president. So the presidential standard for Russia contains a crest in which St. George is slaying a black Zillant. Okay. And so some people say that Russia is using that as a symbol of we conquered Tartary.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So one of the other things that's interesting about the differences in the maps is not only did some of the maps say Grand Tartary, but some of them called it Muscovite Tartary. And so if you know your Russian history, before Russia was Russia, there was Muscovy or Grand Muscovy, which was not as large as modern day Russia is. It was pretty much just that western portion of Russia where Moscow, St. Petersburg are, where it meets Poland and Belarus. So the Muscovites were the people who ended up becoming the Russian Empire and then taking over that huge swath of land across Asia. And so in Russian history, if you look at it, the Tartarians controlled Moscow, and they allowed like the ethnic Tartars were living in Moscow, and they had a lot of influence there. And Russia was like the only Christian nation in Europe that was not submitting to the Pope. And so the Pope gets all ticked off that there's these Tartars living in Moscow. That's a Christian country. We need to not only erase these people, but then we need to erase their history and solidify the position that Russia is a Christian nation, which of course Russia is an Orthodox nation.
Yes.
And it is today.
Right.
So they don't submit to the Pope anyway. But like we were going back to, there's a lot of political / theological turmoil in Europe at the time. The split between the Catholics and Orthodox has been as old as time, basically. And so for some people, that's why they think that the Tartarian Empire was erased, was because the Pope was not happy with the Tartars controlling Moscow.
It's not far-fetched to
No,
assume
not at
that,
all.
honestly.
So then another symbol, because we'll I guess we're just going to talk a lot about Russian history. So
Okay, Vladimir.
and here's 4 hours on the history of Russia.
Just put on the Tucker Carlson interview with Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
There you go.
So as we know, in 1917, the Tsar Nicholas II and his family were murdered by the Bolsheviks, and that's when the communists took over and they became the USSR. So during that reign of terror that the USSR was, the communists did a lot of revision of history because they wanted, they especially didn't want the Russian people to know that they murdered Tsar Nicholas, because he was a controversial figure, but for the most part, especially in Western Russia, where most of those people are ethnic Russians, they loved Tsar Nicholas. And even though times were tough during World War I, it would have been an unpopular position if the communists come out and they go, yeah, by the way, we killed this guy and his entire family, and you should look up to us now. That doesn't play well. So they start to revision history. Like they say that Tsar Nicholas and his family, they fled off. Oh, they abandoned the Russian people.
Yeah.
And we don't know what happened to them. They just left, and so now we're stepping up to the plate.
Well, we just, not to interrupt you, but I am going to interrupt you. Jordan and I touched on this last episode, I believe it was, just briefly, how the events that led up to World War One and how World War One transformed all of Europe.
Yes.
Like, not just obviously because of war, but it some can argue, and I tend to agree with this, that was the beginning of the downfall of Christian Europe.
Yes.
No,
Like ethnically,
I mean,
politically.
I mean, yeah,
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Because like we touched on what supposedly set it off was just like the if you look at it, it doesn't make sense.
right. But yeah,
It
because
makes absolutely zero sense.
that
Archbishop
Franz Ferdinand was murdered in Sarajevo.
Sarajevo assassinated, and that apparently just pissed off all kinds of people all over the place.
Enough people
Enough
to
to
go
and
off.
start
we're
a
just
war.
going to have a war,
Right.
a world war.
Yeah.
A world war. Yeah.
But anyhow,
So the Soviets go through this revision. This, they're just trying to rewrite Russian history, and they're trying to make Russia seem like the good guys, and because the communists are the good guys, right? And so one of the things that Stalin did during his time was all of the like the historic buildings in Moscow around the Kremlin, they had black zilants and other, or some of them had crosses, like Orthodox crosses and other symbols on top of all these towers. He had them all taken down and replaced with the Red Star, right? For the communist
Right.
Red Star. And so that was part of it. But at Kazansky Station, which is in Moscow, they did not, for some reason, replace that black zillant with the Red Star for whatever reason. And also, that clock tower on Kazansky's tower, on all four sides, it has, because we use Arabic numerals for our numbers,
Right.
it has those numbers now. But in addition to that, instead of replacing the numerals that it had on it, they added the Arabic numerals to it. It has the zodiac symbols,
which is weird because go ahead.
because the USSR wanted to crush all religion. Period.
Yeah.
You weren't allowed to be a Christian in the
So
USSR.
like astrology, you're
Right.
talking about zodiac symbols,
Yes.
like that should be not okay,
Right.
Yeah.
especially in the Soviet Union.
I mean, which then it makes me wonder if we're talking about these mysterious Tartars, like who are the Tartars?
Yeah.
And they were in control of Moscow at this time. Like,
Was there some struggle going on there
right.
that was leading to some of these things not being changed or whatever? Yeah.
And there you'll hear some people when kind of along the same lines of what you were just talking about World War I and then World War II back to back, and then what we've seen happen in Europe today, which is just very sad.
It's almost unrecognizable from like socially.
Yes.
So like a socio-political thing. It's just like and that's happened literally like in about a 20-year period.
Right.
Just like very quickly.
And so it's almost like that there is this battle of good and evil going on, because some people on that same vein, they will say that what the Bolsheviks were doing to kill the Tsar was the bad side or the evil side of this good and evil battle. They kill a Christian ruler and overthrow it with communism, which, for us in the West, we despise communism and how communism, I mean, regardless of how you feel about religion, communism killed tens of millions of people just in the Soviet Union, and then killed tens of millions more people in Asia,
Yes,
in China and Vietnam and Cambodia.
Yep.
Communism is not good for the people who have to live under it, unfortunately. So it's interesting that that building, Kazansky Tower, was allowed to keep these Tartar symbols.
Yeah.
There's
Is that to this day?
to this day?
Interesting.
It's
Because
there.
I've been to Moscow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I wish that like, I went there when I was 19 years old. So,
Right.
I wasn't up to snuff. Of course, I was coming out of, the standard educational system that wasn't going to tell us any of this stuff anyway. So
Right. That's a story you
not
haven't told on here yet, have you?
No, I haven't. No, there's some good stories from my time when I was in the Soviet Union.
Yeah, we'll have to do that
Yeah,
sometime
there's some
too.
interesting stories.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay.
Since we're on the Russian topic, like, so also, like, you know how, like, and I'm sure we're going to get more into it, deeper into it, but how the construction of all these, like, ancient buildings and, like, you'll see all over the world, like, I think Petersburg was one of the ones, too, where, like, these, like, unimaginable structures of, like, and it's almost unbelievable because of, like, the tools that we had said that were used to create these
Yeah.
extravagant buildings. And
I don't know if this is phase 2 because what he's getting into the
we're
architecture.
We're getting into phase.
I can hold off on that.
No,
if you
we're
want.
getting into phase 2.
Okay.
I think we can say that we've wrapped up layer 1 and we're going on
Right.
to layer 2.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the interesting things that I read when it talks about the Tartarian Empire was exactly that architecture. And one example that there were two, but one they cited was the 1893 World's Fair in Chicago.
Yes.
That I don't remember what the building was called, but it was huge.
Was it either like the agriculture
It was it was
or the
Yeah,
liberal
yeah.
art building?
liberal arts building,
Liberal arts
liberal
and
arts and
manufacturing.
Yeah,
manufacturing and liberal arts building.
Yes.
Enormous,
Massive.
like, absolutely humongous, and intricate detail.
Yeah.
They built it in 2 years.
And to put it into scale, they said that you could fit, I think they said Madison Square Garden,
Yep. U.S.
Pyramid
Capitol,
of Giza.
Pyramid of Giza, U.S. Capitol, and
And then
Something else.
height wise,
something
like
else.
the Empire State
and,
Building,
and
or
you'd still
something.
have
And you'd still have some room to fit stuff in.
Right.
there.
Yes.
It was at the time. It was the largest building in the world.
Yeah. Right. So
they
and it
apparently
was built in
built
2 years.
Apparently,
In
Yeah.
1893.
right. And then
Okay.
they just
And then
when
they
the
tore
fair
it
was
down.
over, they just
After 72 days or
took it.
something.
They just took it
Yeah.
apart.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's what and so like the standard answer to that, because they did the same thing in San Francisco after the fire in 1906. They had a World's Fair there 9 years later, I think in 1915 or 1916, whatever year it was, 15, I think.
15.
Same kind of thing. These beautiful structures. And just tear them down. So the standard theory or the standard response to that is, well, they were just meant to be temporary structures. They weren't.
Right.
It's not all that they looked
that it-
like they were.
yeah, that it
it's
turned
like
out to be.
there's pictures of that manufacturing and liberal arts building. There's like tens of thousands of people inside there.
Yeah.
Right.
You're gonna just like half-ass build it out of like toothpicks and duct tape, and then just,
Well, they said-
oh, it's all right.
They said like the historians will say that it was plaster
Plaster and
Yeah.
and plywood or
Plywood,
whatever.
yeah.
Like it was very cheap building material
Yeah.
just to have something up.
I don't
but
believe
when
that.
you look at
But you
these
look at the-
photos, it's not like this is like what do they call that? Like
Neoclassical
where you have like
architecture.
the Greek arches.
You have the
Right.
arches and
and you have all the statues that are like
Yeah.
of Nike and you know, the Greek goddesses.
and it had a huge glass top,
huge dome,
like a big domed glass top.
huge like waiting pool,
Yeah.
or reflecting pool,
Yeah.
and these massive buildings, beautiful and ornate, and they threw it up in 2 years and took it down
and then just tore it down.
after a couple months when they were done with the festival.
And there are people that'll also postulate that the Great Chicago Fire was also a part of this,
Right, yeah.
Because as we all know, the story was Mrs. McLean or Old Lady McLean's
cow or
cow
something.
kicked over a
Kicked over a
lantern
lantern.
and burnt the city down.
And ironically hit the most crucial part of the structures. Like,
Right.
Like the main buildings. And
it kind of dodged around
Yeah.
buildings.
right. And can we talk about
And the only one that didn't
scale,
get burnt down was the water tower.
It was a water tower,
the unimaginable scale that these were created at?
right?
Like even like if you look at cathedrals and like churches and
Yeah.
government buildings and all these places around the world, like a scale that doesn't even really fit humans,
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, some of these churches, if you go to Europe and stuff, and some of them are like this in the United States that are older churches, but they have doors that are like 25 feet.
Yeah, and
long.
stairs
Like the
that you have
whole
to
door opens.
almost stretch and leap up and
Yeah, they're like really wide.
And they say that like how like your voice would carry inside a cathedral, like even
Yeah,
if you've
the
been inside,
acoustics and stuff.
how it was to hone energy and like also the I don't know if this is getting too far ahead, but like the star forts.
Yeah, the star forts are part of that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And like the shape, they weren't meant to keep enemies out. They were meant to move energy and to essentially like have these cities run off of
free energy.
Yeah, like no fossil fuels or anything.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So that's part of layer 2 is that actually these buildings like were at the Chicago World's Fair and then also at the Panama Pacific Expo that was held in San Francisco like 10 years before the Chicago World Fair.
Okay.
Same type of thing. These massive buildings, ornate in the neoclassical design. And this was also right after the great San Francisco, or sorry, it was right before
It was before the fire. The fire was in 1906.
the earthquake.
I'm sorry,
The
earthquake.
great San Francisco earthquake.
Earthquake was 1906.
That they have these beautiful ornate things up. You have the Panama Pacific Expo, and then basically all of San Francisco is destroyed by this earthquake, and then the fires that came from the earthquake.
Yes.
And then they rebuild it in
a matter of years.
Just a few years.
Just a few years, not
yeah.
what you would, I mean, based on the destruction, you would think that at that time would have taken a couple of decades to
Right.
rebuild.
Right.
And like with the tools available at the time, it just seems inhumanly impossible to do something like that in that short amount of time.
Yeah, you didn't have power tools.
And then they say that like maybe the
Yeah.
Archaeologists and stuff at this time had like help or information from the Tartarians.
The Tartars. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
These
you
are
know,
these
what's
Tartars are these great builders.
what's incredibly interesting about this conversation, and it ties to stuff we've talked about on here before, is it, you know, and I'm beginning to put myself in the camp that there was an advanced civilization at one point in time in our history that was able to, and I'm not talking about like they had help from aliens. I'm not saying that, but
right.
I'm just saying that because like even if you look at Egypt and you look at the pyramids, Giza is one of the oldest known pyramids built, right?
Right.
Right.
And pretty impressive. And we get into all the crazy theories about energy as it relates to that. But as time went on and other pyramids were built, they were built with less accuracy. They were built in poorer. They didn't stand up to test of time.
Right.
Like the Pyramid of Giza has. It's almost like we went backwards. Like we've talked about this before. Like we've gone backwards,
Right.
in terms of technology and you know, architecture and all that kind of stuff.
Like we were trying to replicate what we had discovered.
Right.
But because we were humans, they were imperfect and
Yeah.
they couldn't stand up to the stuff that we had discovered.
Right.
Yeah.
And like the Sphinx and stuff, like I mean, like
Yeah.
they were taking that stuff out of the ground and like you know, I mean, I'm just gonna say it, like we didn't build that, you know.
Yeah. It's well, because kind of playing off of what you were just saying about the energy that these buildings were not supposed to be office buildings or housing or
Right.
anything like, or even churches. They were actually basically like a transformer power station that was used to generate this electricity that they would send through the atmosphere. And it's kind of in the same vein where we're talking about these massive structures. Because you guys were just talking about, didn't you guys just talk about the moon landing?
Yeah, a couple episodes ago.
Going backwards in
Yeah.
technology.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yes.
we were able to make these gigantic structures, and not just tall, but wide.
Yeah.
And very open. And so I think this also plays into the pyramid theory, which we won't touch on the pyramids too much because it's kind of involved, but more adjacent.
Yeah.
Is that back then, in that time, humans knew how to harness vibrations and frequencies to move heavy objects.
Right, yeah.
And that's how they were able to build these
These big
gigantic structures, whether it was the pyramids or
Well, and there's and so you were talking about acoustics inside these cathedrals and these buildings, and same concept.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the heights of like, I mean, even look at like, I don't know if it's considered part of it, but like, look at Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. Like, it's.
I've been there, it is. To see the pictures is one thing, but to go to some of these places, it's unbelievable.
I feel like it's really, especially if you're there in person,
It is
it's
unbelievable.
extremely hard to fathom like
It
how
is.
something like that
It is.
was created by
I mean, it
humans.
took like they had a big fire there. What, like 5, 6, 7 years,
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, it took them like 5 years to basically
Just repair it.
repair it.
that was
Just
so
to repair
fully
it. I'm not.
standing,
I mean,
you know?
I know it took them 100 years to build it or whatever
Right.
it was, but
Yeah.
but so talking about this energy thing, does this also tie into the stuff that Tesla was doing?
Yes.
Nikola Tesla,
Yes.
Yeah.
So
the
basically,
free energy concept.
that Tesla had some knowledge about this, like harnessing the frequencies to move heavy objects or to push energy without cords or wires, like so we don't have to use telephone poles. We can just, everybody can have wireless energy. And I'm sure anybody who has even been close to stumbling down the Tartarian hole has talked about Tesla or knows about Tesla, that like
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was on the verge of giving us this cordless energy. And then it wasn't until like the Rockefellers were like, how do we monetize this? How can we put put an electricity monitor on somebody's
Yeah.
house if it's
put a meter on it.
how can we put a meter on their house if we don't have a port of entry into the house? And Tesla's like, we're not gonna charge people. We don't
need to.
If it's free energy,
It's
why
free.
do you, it's just
free,
there.
It's free to create the energy. It's free to move the energy around. Why do we need to do that? Like, why do we need to charge people anyway? This is going to just dramatically increase the quality of life for people.
Yep.
And they were like, no, shut that down.
No,
Because like you look at, oh my gosh, this is off on a mini tangent, but like the guys like Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan,
the robber barons.
yeah. So Vanderbilt, Carnegie, like Mellon, those guys were just like, America's booming right now. How do we just take advantage of everybody?
Every single
how do we
opportunity out
nickel
there.
and dime every single person at every corner?
Yep.
And we're gonna own everything. We're gonna own all the banks. We're gonna own all the railroads. We're gonna
All the coal mines, all the natural resources that are being pulled from the,
lumber,
ground,
the oil,
lumber,
the
the oil,
the coal,
yeah. Oh, there's natural gas too. Hey, there's something else we can get.
right.
All of those things. Yeah, they that was like a really pivotal time in the development of this country and the monetization of
Yes.
how this country, how we've gotten to the point where we pay for every thing.
little thing.
Everything.
Everything.
Literally nothing is free.
Nothing is free anymore.
Right. Nothing is free. I mean, because even, can you even think of one thing that's free? Like you want to say, like, we got to pay for bottled water. And you can't even say public parks because our taxes pay to keep those parks.
Right. Yeah.
Correct.
Because if we weren't paying property taxes to maintain the parks, then somebody would eventually just buy the park and put a Walmart on
Put a
it.
Walmart
Exactly.
in there.
A Dollar General.
Or
Like,
Dollar
Yeah.
General.
Dollar
right.
Generals pop up everywhere.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
or a mod wash or
Mod
something.
wash, yeah.
Yeah.
Or freaking oil change place or something.
I was gonna say that's one thing that our town doesn't have enough of, and that's car washes. Like we need more car washes.
There's
And Dollar
there's like
Generals.
one every mile.
Yeah, literally.
Every half mile.
Jeez.
And like and that was we talked. This is off topic, but like about a year ago, we saw like this huge influx of car washes built in just this area
Literally.
in less than a year.
Yeah.
all on
They're all over the
on
place.
the same road,
Yeah,
basically.
all the main roads, but in like between Mahoning Valley, Columbiana County, all that,
Car washes.
all the main roads, 224 Mahoning.
I wonder
all
if
that.
I wonder if
They're probably owned by the Chinese. Just
Oh, I was
money laundering
I was
operation.
gonna make the joke that they're like Breaking Bad, how he buys a car wash
Yeah.
to
Right.
launder his.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
They're
That's
just
why
laundering.
Just
that
laundry-
is
just
that
laundry
is
launders.
part of this is way off topic, but this is part of what the CCP is doing in this country with drug money. Is they are laundering it through businesses like that.
Yes.
Crazy.
Yeah. But anyhow,
Yeah.
So one of the other interesting buildings I brought up Kazansky Station in Moscow, but there's another building in Russia that's interesting. That it's hard to pronounce. It's like Soyumbik Tower, which is in Kazan. Kazan is apparently a very large city in like southwestern Russia, and so the Russian version of the history is that it was built under Ivan the Terrible, and he had his men build it in 2 weeks. But there's a painting that was that was painted before Ivan the Terrible became the king, and that tower is in the background of the Russian army is like marching across the plains to Kazan, and that tower
You can see it in the painting.
is in the background of the painting because it's very prominent. It's a very noticeable tower. Like anybody from that area go like, oh yeah, that's Soyombica Tower. Like I know what that is.
Yeah.
So that history revision falls through because it was already there.
Yeah.
So Ivan the Terrible didn't build it.
But those types of leaders wanted, part of the reason they claimed those things was because at the time that was a way to show that you're doing great things.
Yeah.
And getting people to hopefully like you and love you because you built this great tower in our city. This is so beautiful and it's great. It's what a wonder of architecture.
You need some good PR when your name is Ivan the Terrible.
Well,
Yeah, and like there was a lot of PR with the whole thing with Chicago. Like when Chicago became this fully, like furnished city of these extravagant buildings and same thing I think with like the construction of those, people were taking credit for it and like from this time all the way up until like our like you said until at least 1800 we were building things that just were unmanageable, and I feel like there's somewhere behind it where like whoever took credit for it didn't really build it,
Right.
Probably not.
Well,
right.
Have you seen? So I have a list of a couple buildings that kind of fall into that category, where the people who claim to have built them didn't actually build them, or according to the Tartarian theory. So like the White House is on there.
Yes.
But so is the Lincoln Memorial. Have you seen the photo? Have you seen the photo of DC where this was when they had like just charted out that DC was going to be the new capital, and they're starting to do the city planning, and it's just a picture of the Lincoln Memorial, and it's just in the middle of the swamp because I mean DC is literally just built on top of a swamp,
Right?
And so that's the only thing. There's no roads. There's no other buildings. It's just there's the Lincoln Memorial. And everything else around it is empty. So that's one of them. The El Paso High School, and I know that's crazy because you're thinking like, what? How am I supposed to know what this building is? So it's this beautiful high school built in the same style, the neoclassical style with the big Greek pillars, and
In El Paso, Texas.
El Paso, Texas. And when it was constructed, at the time, it cost them $500,000, which in today's money is absurd.
How long ago was this built? Same time frame?
Well, they say built like mid 19th century, like maybe 1830s to 1860s.
Okay.
So like today, $500,000.
Probably 20 million, 30
Right.
million, maybe more.
And guess what? The first graduating class of El Paso, Texas, or the El Paso High School was 15 people. So why did you? Spend spend that?
Why
much
would
money
they
on a
build
high
that?
school?
Build a high school
Right.
in all places, El Paso, Texas,
Right.
for have a graduating
15
class
kids.
of 15 kids.
Right.
That's crazy.
So then the other one is the Great Wall of China, which you guys have talked about on here before.
have. Yeah. Yes,
so
we have.
this theory is that
People don't care about that though.
they don't care about the Great Wall of China.
I'm just.
I think it's
So-
a joke.
I'm remarking on a comment that was made about that.
I think it was a TikTok comment.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
a TikTok comment.
So the Great Wall of China was not built by the Chinese. It was built by the Tartars, not to keep the Mongols out of China. It was to keep the Chinese out of Tartaria.
Wow.
Because some of the things that I was looking at about the Great Wall of China was that when you have these kind of like what you're talking about, the star forts, except the Great Wall of China was actually for defense, where the star forts were more for energy. When you build these defensive walls, whether it's on a castle or just one of those big walls to defend your city, is you wanted to have slots where guys could shoot their bows out while still being undercover, right?
Right. Yeah.
So how come those slots are facing the Chinese side of the wall and not the Mongol side of the wall?
Right.
Interesting
And
point.
how come they
Is
have,
that is factual?
that's factual? And how come
Interesting.
you have on these big walls, you typically have what's called a gatehouse, so somebody could enter there to open up the gates. How come the entrance to the gatehouse is on the Mongol side and not the Chinese side? You would think you'd have it on the side that you're trying to defend, so you can get into the gatehouse.
Yes, right. Without being attacked.
Right.
Right.
Wow.
You're not going to like cross over. enemy territory and enter into the gatehouse.
So that's part of this theory of the revision history, because Chinese Tartary was also like the Qin, Qing, the Qin dynasty. And so maybe there was some beef between Grand Tartary and the Chinese Tartarians, and they built this big wall. And we talk about like, the Great Wall of China is like 13,000 miles long, or what?
Yeah.
Absurd.
Yeah.
How could they build it? Well, because they have this technology to use frequencies to harness this energy to move big bricks.
like some,
especially if you look at the
quicker.
terrain.
the terrain in some parts where that runs through, it's like
Right.
it's almost as crazy as like, all of these other ancient things that we've found around the world. It's just like the terrain is like, what's the one in Peru?
Machu Picchu?
Yeah, Machu Picchu.
Yeah.
Like you're like a mile and a half above sea level or
Yeah.
whatever, and
You
it's
just
like we just
straight up into the
we
Andes.
just drug all these rocks up there to build this
Right.
just for shits and gigs.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
And like that kind of goes in play with like the seven wonders of the world. Like all that stuff is totally part of this.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and also so we have the seven wonders of the ancient world and then the seven wonders of the modern world, right?
Yeah, right.
Because a lot of the ancient world ones don't exist anymore, like the Hanging
Hanging
Garden
Gardens
of Babylonia,
Babylonia,
Yeah.
right?
the Library of Alexandria.
Mm-hmm.
So why did the Romans went in and burn Alexandria to the ground, including the library, which is apparently the greatest collection of written material in the ancient world.
Yeah.
So some people think that's part of the revision history, is that the Romans destroyed that so that they could destroy whatever these humans were doing. Maybe it wasn't the Tartars at the time. Maybe it was what the Egyptians used to build the pyramids, but they destroyed that knowledge, burning the Library of Alexandria. But also like on this, like I was saying, on that same theme of these great fires around the world destroying these beautiful structures.
Yeah.
And ever since then, we can't replicate it.
Or and I think it was almost like, and we were told, well, it's the modernization of architecture,
Sure.
right? That's what we've been told, though, right? That's what, things times change, people's likes and dislikes change, so we want something to be a little bit more modern, and things don't need to be as ornate as they were. Like that's unnecessary.
Right.
That's what we were. That's the revisionist history that's coming into play. That like, hey, don't ask questions about why we're not building stuff like that anymore. We don't want to.
Right. Yeah, we just don't want to.
We
It's
just
not
don't
the
want
style
to.
anymore.
It's not that we can't. We just don't want to.
Right.
It's not the style.
Like, we built the Empire State Building out of steel and concrete. Why would we build that out of limestone bricks when we've got steel now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've got all these poor immigrant laborers who can do it.
Yeah.
Now.
And yeah.
But I kind of wanted to talk about, because I think in the same idea that there are forces of good and evil in this world. Going back to the religious aspect, is not just Christian Europe versus the Zoroastrian / Muslim world, but also apparently, I don't know the exact lineage, but there were two descendants of Noah, Mogul and Tartar, who they were both descendants of Turk. Turk was the adopted son of Japheth, who was one of the sons of Noah.
Mm-hmm.
So Noah's son Japheth had his adopted son Turk, and then like his great grandsons were Mogul and Tartar, who go on to found the Mongolian Empire and the Tartarian Empire. And what have we heard history-wise about the Mongols? That the Mongols, they're
terrible.
They're terrible.
They're terrible people.
They never built anything.
All they did was kill people.
They were
conquer places.
They were basically just roaming gangs of barbarians.
Yeah.
Who would rape, pillage, and kill everything in their path.
Yep.
And in that part of like, Mongolia, Central Asia, there's not a lot of these great big structures there.
Right.
But history has told us that these people, they're bad people, and they didn't have any. Whereas like the Roman Empire and the Greek Empire, the Persians, they had these strong systems of government and law and things that we look to in modern day law.
Right.
Whereas the Mongols literally controlled almost all of Asia.
Yeah.
Just about. The largest, like from a land perspective, like the largest empire on a continental surface in human history, but they didn't have any house of government. Like we look to Rome and we look to Athens and we look to these ancient cities that were the seats of government for these ancient empires, but the Mongols didn't have that. So you're telling me that some dude living out of a tent was able to conquer all of Asia, basically?
Mm-hmm. And like not only all of Asia, but I'll have to send you the video, but even because Japan was its own little the Sengoku era.
Okay.
It's a very interesting era to study, especially because of the Mongols. But they conquered this small, like Japan at the time was just this island,
Yeah.
and then like you said, all of Asia. But for them to even like you said, like these like guys in tents raiding this smaller country even that has nothing really there at the time, and then they're taking over that, and then all of Asia. It just.
Did the Mongols conquer Japan at one time?
I believe so, yeah. Or at least they tried. I don't think they actually succeeded.
Because I think where we get the word, or where that not we, but where the Japanese get the word kamikaze, that was, I think the story that I've heard is that the Mongols, who these guys were expert archers on horse, right? And so whenever they want to go conquer Japan, they're like, well, we got to get in some boats.
Yeah, I mean,
they're not the best
right.
sailors.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to invade Japan and a naval invasion, amphibious,
like the Dothraki.
right.
Right.
And as the Japanese story goes, is that there was this like holy spiritual storm that comes in and just wipes out the whole Mongol armada.
Yeah.
And they call that the kamikaze, and which they obviously repurposed that for other things.
Right. Yeah.
But it was just interesting that the Mongols were just trying to take over everything, and we have this idea.
Just nomads.
You watch
thieves.
Milan, and it's like they paint the Mongols as these giant beast, evil, black eyes, gray skin, like these evil dudes.
Yeah.
And it's like I think that we have framed them that way because they were actually the advanced civilization that we have since tried to
erase.
Yeah. And speaking of, and if you think that it's only the Catholic Church who's trying to erase this, or it's all, the rich and powerful from the early 20th century who want to erase this history, it extends into 1957. Okay, the CIA, of course.
Yeah, naturally.
The CIA wrote a memo. The memo was written in 1957. It didn't become public knowledge until 1999 when they declassified it. It was called the National Cultural Development Under Communism. Okay? And so basically, the CIA collaborated with the KGB to help them erase Russian history inside of the USSR and rewrite it so that it made the communists look better. They admitted to it in this document, in this memo that was released in 1999, which coincidentally is right after the fall of the Soviet Union.
Wow.
The Cold War's over at that time.
Right.
So
this isn't that long ago that this erasure of history was happening.
Yeah. Well, why would the CIA collaborate with the KGB?
Because this war between good and evil it's evergreen. It's going on from today until 5,000, 10,000
I get that.
years ago.
Basically what you're saying is that memo and that the CIA they were bad actors then, which that wasn't too long before John F. Kennedy was assassinated.
That's not news.
Right. So they were bad actors then, like they're bad actors today.
Right.
Right.
It's just like just repetition throughout history. There's always someone in power